Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the City Council meeting of Monday, June 8, 2020. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Okay, Albertson?
Here.
Bueller?
Here.
Hoyer?
Here.
Moline? Here. Lallam?
Here.
Mancy? Here. Rademski?
Here.
Roby?
Here.
Billhauer?
Here.
Why?
Here.
Thank you.
All right, the first item on the agenda is approval of the consent agenda. I have a motion by Rademski and a second by Holine. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. And we do not need to do roll call vote because we have a quorum present in the chambers. So if all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
And is anyone abstaining? All right, motion carries. The next item is public comments, and this is the time for anybody who wants to speak about something that's not on the agenda to do so. If someone would like to do that remotely, please state your name and say request permission to speak. Okay, I don't hear anyone, so we'll move on. Next item is approval of the agenda. I have a motion by Vilhauer.
Second.
And a second by Bueller. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed signify by saying nay.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Item 7 is the regular agenda, and item A is the second reading of ordinance number 20-22, providing for the City Council's ability to periodically designate additional permissible fireworks discharge locations and to update the ordinance for consistency with recent state law revisions. And I'll entertain a motion on that. I have a motion by Holine.
Second.
Second by Roby. And I'll ask the City Attorney, Matt Roby, to introduce this, please.
Thank you, Mayor. As the title explains, what you have in front of you here is the second reading of an ordinance that would amend the two fireworks ordinances of ours. The primary driver for this ordinance change, as you'll recall, was the recommendation from the Park Board that we allow for an alternative location or locations for the public to discharge fireworks on the 4th of July. And so you'll notice in the second paragraph there where it provides that other locations can be designated periodically by resolution of the City Council. That came as a result of the kind of in the discussions where the Park Board decided that the general public couldn't shoot fireworks at City Park this year. So the remaining changes that are proposed here are updates to the ordinance to make it consistent with some language changes in state law.
Okay, thank you, Matt. And this will persist throughout time. And every year we can choose to designate another location by resolution if we want. We aren't required to. It's not set by ordinance where it will be. Can change that with the resolution that follows. Are there any questions or comments from the council? Councilman Vilhauer?
Just a clarification, as an ordinance change, this does not require a public hearing, is that correct?
That's
because
correct.
the type of ordinance it is?
Correct.
Okay.
But if anyone wants to speak about this, I would certainly allow it. Any other questions or comments from the council? All right, seeing none, I will look for action. All those in favor signify by saying aye, and those opposed signify by saying nay.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Thank you. Item B is approval of Resolution 20-28 designating Anza Soccer Complex as a permissible fireworks discharge location on July 4th, 2020. Have a motion by Helene, second by Vilhauer. And Matt, will you please tell us about that?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This resolution will designate that the general public can shoot fireworks from Anza Soccer Complex this year. It only pertains to this year, and as drafted currently, it only pertains to this year. And the time frame I included, we didn't get a definitive answer the last time this was discussed, so the proposed time frame I included was noon to 11:59 p.m. this year on the 4th of July, and that would be consistent with the ordinance that was just approved. And I guess the final comment I would have is that the motion for this approval of this should be contingent on the effectiveness of the just approved ordinance change.
Yes, okay, thank you. And so this effectively takes the place of City Park, which the Park Department manages, and they've decided that we will not be having fireworks there as we have in the past, but this is an alternate location. It's another area also managed by the Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Department. So are there any questions or comments from the council? Councilman Vilhauer?
I believe there may be somebody that was going to call in that would like to speak to this. Do you want to ask if there is anyone on the line that would like to?
Sure, wanted to give the council first dibs.
Okay. I guess if I got the floor, then I'll throw a question out. I'm okay with it. Just one comment though. I believe the Park and Rec Board suggested a time of 7 to midnight that evening, and we're going from noon to midnight. Bruce, I know you were a part of that meeting too. Do you want to chime in, or?
I will chime in a little bit. We made that decision, probably a little in haste at that meeting. And then I think at the last discussion we had, we thought we should open that up more, because there's a lot of young folks that probably aren't going to be out there after 7 o'clock. Give them an opportunity. The only one concern that I might have, because of the 12 p.m. to 11:59, because of the police or anybody who's got to oversee this, is that too much time for the folks that we are asking to kind of keep an eye on this whole situation?
We have the police chief online. Chief McPeak, would you care to comment on that, the time frame?
Sure, I'd be happy to comment. I guess this was the first I'd heard that it was noon to whatever, but the only conflict would probably be the parade. We usually have most of our staff down there, but I don't think it would be too much of a problem to have at least one officer detailed out there just to keep an eye on things. So I don't think it's going to overextend us.
Okay, good. Thanks, Chief.
Yep.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilman Helene?
I just have a comment. I think perhaps we should work with some of the retailers selling the fireworks to have a sign up or something to alert the people from out of town that come to buy fireworks who are assuming that they might be able to go to City Park, and telling them of the alternate location, maybe even showing them how to get there.
That's a great idea.
Thanks.
I like that idea. I think we can get that done. Any other comments from the council?
Mayor, I might, if I may.
Sure.
Thank you.
Councilman Bueller.
Are we going to notice at City Park, are we going to have signage or anything of that nature on location to let folks know that we are not allowing fireworks there this year?
I think we should, and we should do some public announcements about it in advance and a few days prior at the campground, so that people who've come from out of town and are camping with that anticipation aren't surprised by that. Terry Kelly's the park director. Do you want to make a comment on that, Terry?
Yeah, just to follow up, we are working on our plan for signage, notifications. Campers will be handed a flyer, you know, when they do log in. In addition, the boat ramp entrance, and we'll have large signage, letting them know that the discharge is not allowed. So that is in the works currently within our staff.
All right.
Thank you.
Councilman Vilhauer?
Not related to the resolution, as long as we're talking fireworks, I'll throw this out. TK, I reached out to you. I'm not sure if you did, Dan, but I know I got at least one email from a citizen that lives out by Jackson Park, immediately to the west of Jackson Park, concerned about the nearness now and the increased activity as fireworks, you know, requesting some kind of buffer potentially, and you said you were going to reach out to your staff to consider that, a little more protection for some of the homeowners out there immediately to the west.
Correct. We're working with our Parks Division. We don't probably have quite enough snow fence, so we'll probably get with Rob, possibly with the street department. But we do plan on putting a barrier on the west side of the entrance on the upper side of Jackson, which should be right across from the golf course shop, if people can kind of picture where that location is.
Okay, thanks, TK.
You bet. Thank you.
All right. Are there other folks who would like to weigh in on this? If there's someone on the line that would like to speak, please state your name and just say, request permission to speak.
This is Dan Rodershot, Lewis Fireworks, and yeah, I'd like to just maybe comment briefly on it. And I have sent kind of a proposed, what I think is kind of a target plan that I think would be a good trial run on the soccer fields as far as a safe way of doing this. And I think the chairman, Glenn, and I know Mayor Sarah have a copy of that, and I believe I sent one to Lee McPeak as well, and then Terry, Kelly, and then the fire department also. And so I'm hoping to maybe just put together another meeting, if everything is approved after this, to just kind of share with them how I think we can do this, do it safely, do it in an organized fashion, so we don't have just people running around all over. I'm planning on, supplying a staff member of mine to kind of help organize some of the different things, from everything from a shooting station, spreading them out appropriately, having water jugs, even having a tire out there for some of you that are familiar with shooting some of the newer consumer fireworks today. They're a little more powerful than they used to be, and we've found that if you take an old tire and put this laying down and then the shell inside of that and light it, if for some reason something would malfunction or something would tip, it dissipates the energy inside the ring of that tire. So my plan would be to have different plywood stations spread out appropriately throughout the field, and then have a tire, have some water for fire extinguishing, and then I may ask the request of having the fire department maybe have a brush truck there, kind of like what they do with all of our bigger shows, just something on site in case there would ever be something that we would be unaware of. But I think we have a good plan. I think we can do this safely. We've got the space. My best, and I haven't had a chance to speak with Lee yet, but I just know some of the frustration the city police department does have on the 4th of July, where people are shooting in areas where they shouldn't. And we have never been a proponent of that or ever said that that's allowed as people come into our stores, but I know it happens. So my desire, especially this year, being City Park was removed as a viable place to shoot, I think this is the year we want to do this and give it a run. And that way, if any of Lee's police force is out patrolling the parts of the city and they happen to see somebody shooting fireworks, they can say, hey, we now have a place where you can do that, and it's over here. You don't have to go out in the country or find a place at the lake. And so I just think it makes really good sense. And I just want you to know, all council members, I'm going to do everything I can on my end to make sure this is done well. And just asking maybe for a little assistance from the fire department, police department to help us to just oversee it. Because if I have a staff member out there, he's probably not going to be real respected from somebody as far as a consumer. But if there's a badge out there, people seem to pay attention to that. So I'm just hoping that maybe we can get a little bit of backup and maybe some assistance from the police department on that. But I think it's a good plan. I think it'll work. And I guess I put that before you. And if you haven't had a chance to see what, I just got it to the 5 members this morning that I just mentioned earlier. But if you haven't got a chance to see it, I can send it to the whole city council board there, where you can take a look at what they already have. And I'm open for suggestions. If you see something on there you think we're missing, boy, I'm all ears, because we want to do something good for the community, good as far as public safety, and I think it'll be a workable thing. So.
Great. Well, we really greatly appreciate your advice, Mr. Ottershot. So thank you for all of that input, and I will forward your message around to the rest of the council so that they can have a look at it. And I know that our fire marshal has been working through this every step of the way too, to make this a safe alternative for our community. And safety was the reason that we stopped allowing it at City Park, and so we want this. We think this is a safer location and a better location, so we'll see how it goes this year. Does anybody else want to comment? Yes, Councilman Villar.
Dan, are you still on the line? I've got a question. I know we've had contact with some of the soccer people. Their concern being the debris left on the field potentially. Your plan did address some cleanup possibilities. Do you want to touch on that just for a minute, Dan?
Sure, Glenn. Thank you for the question. Yeah, my thought would be, I'm going to take you guys back, especially I know Don and some of you that have been Watertown residents forever. Years ago, when we used to do the Watertown show out at the stadium, there were times that Dave Hoas would always line up some of the people that were maybe in the detention center that would help us kind of set the show up and do some of the cleanup. Let me tell you what my thoughts are right now. I mean, if that would be an option, there might be some that they would like to allow the opportunity to do that. This is on July 6th now, which would be a Monday morning. But I also, I'm a president of the Watertown Christian School Board as well, and I've already talked to my board, and we have members and students that we can canvass that area. So what we would do is basically line up people, have a bag, and we would sweep that area and just make sure there's no evidence of any fireworks there or anything that would cause any problem for any of the soccer associations. So the day we had the show out there, it's probably been a month ago now, that was also something I required of all my staff. I said, if they're going to give us the opportunity to do this, we want to do it well, and we want to leave this place cleaner than when we got here. And I think if you talk to Matt or some of those that actually work that field, I think they would tell you that there is no evidence of that. And we even cleaned the parking lots up after, and I don't know if it was garbage left there from before or when, but we canvassed that area and we made sure it was clean. And so, Glenn, that would be my plan going forward too. That we'll walk that field, we'll scour it, and make sure there's nothing in there. So,
thanks, Dan.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilman Albertson.
Thank you, Mayor. Dan, I'm thinking about the fire safety. It's really dry right now. At what point in time does it become too dangerous for the surrounding area there to have this show?
My understanding is the soccer fields are irrigated. Is that right?
Yes, that's
Yes.
correct.
Okay. And so if that would be the case, Dan, I think my thought would be that we would always pull something back far enough in from the outside perimeter just to make sure that we didn't have things going in an area where there might be some concern. I know we have Willow Creek to the east, and then we've got the detention ponds and some water to the west of us by the softball complex. But it is something we would pay attention to that, because whether if it would be something that would be available to do down the road, we want to make sure that there's no issues for starting any grass fires or anything like that. So it's one of those things you almost have to wait till it gets a little bit closer. But if for some reason there would be a year where the fire danger is at the extreme category, I think that's a point in time that a person could visit it and say, do we still feel it's a safe time to do this? And there might be a year or two where we might not be able to do that. I think most years you probably could, but there might be a year or two where we'd have to address that situation too.
Okay, thank you. I see the Fire Marshal, Chip Primus, is on the line. And Chip, if you wouldn't mind explaining a little bit how I think that the fire department could potentially make a decision and ban fireworks for fire protection reasons. Is that true?
Oh, it would take a council action to do that, but we would make our recommendation to at that time if it posed a threat of high winds and dry conditions, and we go off the state website, like Dan was referring to, the grasslands. So we would cover it that way, and you know we do have the ability to pull fireworks permits if the conditions are bad, but this is not a permitted event. It's a citywide event.
Right. Okay, thank you. There is a council meeting on July 2nd, I believe, or is it? Oh, no. Nope, not until the 7th. So, yeah, probably our second June council meeting would be not close enough to make that call.
Well, I think I'm not 100% sure on that. I'll have to refer with Matt.
Yeah.
We
can look into that.
Referendum.
Yeah, we should be thinking about that before we're in a pinch. So, Councilman Vilhauer?
I just want to emphasize what Chip just said, because, you know, Dan Rottershot's been involved in this. I really appreciate his help. But just to make sure the public is not confused, this is no sort of commercial display. This is strictly, you know, citizens on their own doing a display. So just make sure there's no confusion out there because of Dan's involvement. There is no commercial display in the works.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Matt, did you want to say something?
I was just going to chime in on that, yeah, this would not grant anybody the right to provide a commercial display out there. That would still need to come as a separate request.
Okay. Thank you. All right, if there are...
Mayor Sarah?
Yes.
If I could make just one other comment.
Sure.
Last year we updated all the state statutes out in Pierre, and I kind of spent some time actually with our state fire marshal, and we reviewed every law that's on the books right now in the state of South Dakota. And just in reference to what you're saying about if it would be dry, and Dan's question too, there is actually, and Chip kind of was speaking to this as well, there is a statute in our state law that says if the rangeland fire index reaches the extreme category during a certain time frame, that's approximately, I think, the 20th of June to the 2nd of July, if it does happen where it's there 2 days in a row, that, you know, they can restrict the use of fireworks. So there is already a trigger in your state law that would kind of probably complement what your concern might be there if that ever got to that point. So.
Okay, very good. That's good to know. Thank you. All right. Anyone else? Last call. All those in favor of this motion, say aye, and if you're opposed, say nay.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Item C is approval of a flag policy for City Hall. At the last council meeting, there was a request to fly a flag in front of City Hall to commemorate an event, and I discussed it with several of the council members, and we all agreed that it would be good to have a policy in place before we respond to that request so that the city has a foundation for consistently judging requests. So I researched the topic and developed a policy that seemed reasonable to me, and I sent it to all of the council members, and it is attached to the agenda packet. And many cities have similar policies. This policy states that the flags may be displayed in conjunction with official actions, ceremonial items, proclamations of the mayor and city council, or community events, and the mayor will decide. The policy also states that the city will not display flags of commercial, religious, or political organizations or those supporting discrimination, prejudice, or religious movements. So after I sent that out, a second draft was proposed saying that only government flags should be flown on the City Hall pole, and I think POWMIA flag could also be flown, but those are the only ones. And the reasons for not flying other flags are that a flown flag might cause a political debate. We will eventually say no, and then we'll be challenged on fairness. There are other opportunities for organizations to fly a flag, and this is a time of turmoil in our nation, and thus maybe not a good time to take an action that might be controversial. So City Hall is the people's house. All citizens are welcome here. And flags are a celebratory tool that we have for our nation, our state, for our city, and also for individuals. The elected officials should do the right thing, and each of us must decide for ourselves what that is. So truly, the simplest thing would be to say government-only flags. I would ask, does it better serve the public welfare for elected officials to prevent controversy or to acknowledge official actions, ceremonial items, city proclamations, and community events? You can argue both sides of that. One thing I like about this town, Watertown collaborates. We're a community that welcomes public input and diversity of opinion. We won't always agree, but together we will make decisions that move us in the direction that we seek as a community. My conscience says that the policy allowing but limiting flags is the one we should adopt, but I will honor the collective vote of the city council, whatever that may be. And now the person who made the request is here, and it's Mr. Brett Reese. I'm going to invite him to speak, and I think we don't have a motion on the floor, so it's not the time for debate yet. But if you would like to present your request again so it's fresh, I think that would be a good idea.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for letting me speak with all of you again. I know there are concerns, as the mayor pointed out, about the flag policy that she has introduced. I think those concerns are understandable, but I'm here to talk to you about why I think they should not guide your decision today, because I think they're unfounded in the reality of the decision you're being asked to make today. The first concern is one of frivolous requests or multiple requests. Considering that I'm one of the first people to ever ask for this to be done at the Watertown City Hall, leads me to believe that this isn't something that's in high demand to begin with. But even if there was a high demand, the guidelines in Mayor Karen's policy significantly limit who can raise a flag and how frequently they can request that flag. As the mayor stated, it excludes commercial, religious, and political organizations, and states that also you can only request one flag raised per calendar year per person or organization. And so both of these parts will significantly limit the number of requests, if there even are a high number of requests to begin with. The second is a concern for making difficult decisions about which flag should be flown. I have many responses to this concern. The first being, and the mayor mentioned, as city council members, you're elected to make difficult decisions, not run away from them. Desire to not have to make a tough choice shouldn't be a reason to vote down a particular policy. But second, as I previously stated, the policy significantly guides which flags can or cannot be flown, so it wouldn't entail tough religious or political decisions because those flags would already be banned from being flown. And third, keep in mind that we're only talking about raising flags. Rejecting a flag proposal would not dismantle an organization, so I'm not sure why it would weigh so heavily to begin with on the decision makers. If we were talking about funding organizations, I think that'd be a different story. But we're talking about just raising a flag. But fourth and finally, the mayor's policy would put the decision in the mayor's hands, not the city council's hands. So you guys wouldn't even have to make a difficult decision, nor would you be responsible for any decision that the mayor makes. The mayor would be, and she has shown a willingness to take on that responsibility. And so for any of these four reasons, like, I urge the city council not to vote down this policy because of a fear of difficult decisions. And the final concern, obviously, is one of community backlash. I know that I'm asking you to do something that not everyone in this community will support, but you've had to make decisions like that before. And I strongly urge each of you not to base your decision on a fear of vocal opposition. For the pride flag specifically, which is what I requested, this would be a significant learning opportunity for the community. Anyone who reaches out to you can be taught by each of you what happened on June 12th specifically. And be told that this flag symbolizes the city council standing against discrimination and violence in our community, which it has said time and time again that it does stand against that. You can control the messaging when you talk to constituents that give you vocal opposition. The majority of Watertown denounces discrimination and violence, and so let that guide your decision today. And on Friday, for our event, you will see the amount of people that would support the decision to raise this flag. And the pride flag is the easiest way to represent a community that was a victim to the targeted gun violence that I emailed you all about and that I spoke about last week. If you allow the pride flag to be raised on Friday, yes, some people will be angry, but after a week, they'll move on with their lives and forgetting about a flag that was raised for just one day. But another group in this community will not forget so quickly. That group consists of young adults and adults in our community who are frequently harassed, bullied, or afraid to be who they are because they feel like they live in a community that does not support them. Obviously, a flag will not solve everything, but it will at least be a step in a positive direction toward the city council standing against discrimination and violence. You are all leaders, and there are people in the community looking to you right now to give them some sort of sign. And I know this is true because this is what I was looking for when I was growing up in this community. I would have given anything to know that the leaders of my city were there to protect me, not villainize me. And this is your chance to do something so simple, yet something that will have a significant impact on a community that needs your leadership. People around the world right now are calling for peaceful ways to stand up to discrimination and violence. What could be more peaceful than simply raising a flag for one day in our community? If you enact a government flag-only policy, you'd have to deny the American Cancer Society's request to fly a pink flag for Breast Cancer Awareness Month. You'd have to deny the American Childhood Cancer Organization's request to fly a gold flag for Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. I have shown you that rejecting Mayor Karen's policy does not really save you from anything because the decision lies in her hands and you would not be held responsible for that, and it would have a significant impact on our community. Rejecting the policy will strip the city council of a chance to put their money where their mouth is when they say they oppose discrimination and violence. You've seen the kind of publicity South Dakota receives when it targets the LGBTQ community. Don't be the city council that refuses to do something as simple as raising a pride flag for a day, condemning violence against our community. Last summer when I was in DC, I helped write a resolution that commemorated the 50th anniversary of the Stonewall Uprising, and at the end it condemned violence and discrimination against our community. That resolution passed both houses of Congress unanimously. Every politician in Washington agreed that it's time to stand against discrimination and violence in our country. So be a part of the progress. Don't stand in its way. And please do not take this decision lightly, because you have a real chance to make a real impact right now. And all it entails is to let a flag be raised for one day. Thank you.
Thank you, Brett.
Madam Chair, Could Matt show the other language? I think Matt's got a copy of that drafted. Can we show that?
Sure. Matt, can you blow that up as big as possible?
So that's pretty brief.
How does that? Can you see it well? This is the first time I've shared something here.
Yes, that's good. Thank you, Matt.
So Matt, why don't you just read that to get it in the record, and then I'll comment.
Yeah, this alternative that was put together by a few council members. This would say that only the city may place or fly a flag on city flag poles, flag stands, or city-owned properties. This property, the city shall only fly flags of governmental agencies recognized by the United States and located within the United States, including but not limited to the flag of the United States, the flag of the state of South Dakota, and any official flag of the city of Watertown. The city shall also display the Paumia flag, which is Prisoners of War Missing in Action flag, which is recognized as a national symbol by the United States Congress.
Okay, Councilman Roby.
Just to facilitate discussion, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a motion that we pass a flag policy that uses that language. Then we can discuss it.
Okay, we have a motion by Roby and a second by Holeen to have a policy that states the alternative of a very simple government only and POW MIA policy. And now I will entertain some discussion. Councilman Roby?
I'll just go first. Brett, first of all, thank you for being here. I respect what you're doing. Tuesday, we had our monthly meeting with the mayor, Josh, Dan, and I did, which we do once a month. And the first thing I said is we have to have a policy on this because granted, we haven't had a lot of requests for things like this, but when you establish something, you then create an environment that says, hey, I'd like to do that too. So when we look at passing policies, ordinances, whatever the case may be, we have to look at what precedents are set. And I can tell you that I think there's other things we can do in the community to recognize the organization you're promoting. I think you'll get good support on that. The question with the flags really is that the right place to be putting up whatever type of flag you'd want to do? And my personal opinion is this, regardless of what organization made this request, if it was a local service organization, even the one I'm a member of, if they made this request, my response is the same because really what it's about the precedence and what we do with our local flagpole. And Brett, you made some good points, and I would agree with a lot of the points you made. One of them is, though, the fear to make a tough decision. I don't think there's a fear to make a tough decision here. But at the same time, you're asking us to absolve ourselves of future decisions and putting it on the mayor's case, and I don't want to do that. So I think the point I'm going to make here is I'm very respectful of your organization. I respect what you're doing. I think there's some things we can do to support your organization locally. I just don't think a flagpole is where that belongs. I think that the potential for requests that we will get in the future are going to be putting us in a position of, quite frankly, having to say who gets to go on there and who doesn't. We do have to make those tough decisions, but there's a lot of people that don't belong on, or organizations don't belong on that flagpole, but then again, it becomes a matter of opinion. So that's just my opinion. Very respectful of what you're doing. I would support this.
Thank you. And I will say a policy, I didn't have to ask the council for this. I could have just said yes. And if I'm not reelected, the next mayor can say this. And I can have my policy, the next mayor can have a different policy, or we can change tomorrow our policy. There's nothing saying that if this becomes overwhelming or just uncomfortable for us that we can't change it. Who would else like to speak? Councilman Vilhauer?
This probably isn't the place for this discussion or the comment that I'm going to throw out. First of all, I do support this policy, limiting it to the flags listed there. My wife and I have lived in Watertown almost 40 years. and love this community. And it pains me when I hear charges of discrimination, prejudice brought out in this community. I think back, I mean, what you're referencing, Brett, I respect that. Some of the comments that I picked up that must have been made at the protest Saturday night based upon how the public opinion reported that. I think back to the Kayai discussion a few years ago and the comments that I heard concerning, you know, discrimination or prejudice against the Native Americans. That pains me when I hear that about this community. What I would like to do is, I would like to propose, and I don't know if we've ever done this, I'd like to propose that we put together a group that has a chance to hear these concerns, you know, citizens groups that are involved, a representation from this body, staff, applicable staff from the community. Let's sit down and just find out what is going on here in the community, because there is no place for discrimination or prejudice within Watertown. That pains me to hear that. So I'd like to make that suggestion that we consider doing that in the very near future. But by the same token, I do support the proposal we've got on the floor right now concerning the flag policy.
All right, thank you. Councilman Hoyer?
Thank you, Mayor. Brett, first off, I just want to start out by saying I 100% respect the bravery that you put on to come up and even say anything and request something like this in our community. I've served with LGBTQ members on my left and my right during my time of military service. I've been a theater major where I've had friends that grew up in South Dakota, and you sit down with them in a hallway as they're breaking down because they're so afraid to just come out to their parents and be themselves. They're afraid of that rejection and that their family won't be there for them. I've seen cases where they don't end up being there for them. In high school, I did theater. I did oral and terp. I remember being, for me, my experience as straight male, walking down the street and having teenagers lean out a car and yell your name and then stick an expletive to it just because of the things you decided to stand up and do for enjoyment, whether that be the arts or what have you. I've sat for days now kind of thinking about this because there's been a lot of discussion on it. And I see where the council's coming from. I understand wanting to stay apolitical and stick with government-only organizations. I also understand what it's like for someone to have to stay closeted and hide a truth and know how they feel about that, and then watching them suffer in silence about it and feel alone and seeing the suicide rates that go along with it because they don't feel accepted and they don't feel loved. For me, I can't look myself in the eyes at the end of the day and approve going ahead with this policy. I think this is an opportunity for the city to receive a call to talk about it, to say that we accept people for who they are, and this is not a community of hate, prejudice, or otherwise. And I understand, I'm not saying that the council members are that. I'm not. I'm saying that walking away from this and staying apolitical, maybe that's the easy road. I wasn't taught to take the easy road. I was taught to stand up in the face of discrimination and hate. And so for me, I'm going to be voting no on this just because I morally and in my heart can't look at someone and say, I didn't stand up for you. And I didn't express my love and say that I stood there next to you. So I'll be saying no to this flag policy because I think we should represent all walks of life. And you know what? Like the mayor said, if we had serious issues about this down the road, then maybe we would look at reviewing it. But I can't imagine we have that many flag requests. And if it creates a little controversy in a conversation, I'm all about political discourse. So I stand with you on this, Brett, and I will say no today to this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Hoyer. Other discussion? Councilman Albertson?
Brett, I appreciate you coming here also and making this request. I've had a little conversation with others about this, and at that point in time, we didn't have a policy. And today I really was torn, still am torn as to what the right thing is. I do like the idea that Glenn is saying that let's get some people together and make sure that we're doing the right thing. I'm not real crazy about sending this off just to the mayor and saying, you know, you get to make these decisions. I don't know if we'll have very many ever, and so it would be easy just to say yes. It's easy to say no, but at this point in time, I think maybe I would vote yes on this, and hopefully the committee that Glenn was talking about will get organized very quickly to deal with this, because it has come up kind of quickly, and so I guess that's where I'm coming from, but I appreciate you coming here today, Brett.
Thank you. Councilwoman Manti?
Let me get up here. Okay, a couple things. I'd like to echo a lot of what Michael said, and I have a niece that just recently came out that it was a really difficult situation for her, not for our family. We were very accepting of it, but I understand what he's saying about the difficult situation. What I would just like to talk or just throw out there a little bit is one situation I heard about or concerned about is a change in leadership. If we put this on the mayor, what's to say that as mayors change, their feelings about things may change as well? And so that's where I was just kind of thinking that we may have a supportive mayor one term, and then an unsupportive mayor another, for picking and choosing what organizations they support. So with this idea of the committee, which I didn't think about, but I had always hoped that Watertown would be a community that did embrace inclusion and all those kind of things. And it does hurt my feelings, not me personally feelings, it hurts me on behalf of the city that Brett had to go through some of the things he had to go through. But do we want to be a city that embraces so much more than just putting a flag up? Do we want to be the city that says, we can do so much more for you. We can support you in this. We can give you a proclamation. And I'm speaking on all organizations that may request us to put up a flag. Can we demonstrate actively through policy and practice that we are not a city that, supports any type of discrimination? And again, like Don said, this is not a matter of fear of putting something on a flagpole. In fact, I was wondering if a policy could be written to only include the city hall flag, to give the council or the mayor, whoever it is, an opportunity to hang flags somewhere else, our new city park, or some of those other kind of things that may be city-owned property, but we can still go ahead and make sure that we demonstrate that we're a community that supports all organizations. And I'm talking everything from, like he said, the Boy Scouts to cancer organizations, freedom of choice, right to life, all the different things that yes, those are hard decisions, and those are organizations that have been politicized. So I would rather see us say, we will give you a platform, or we will bring you a place that you can, supporting the marches and the candlelight vigils, offering proclamations, demonstrating the community's willingness to do this, all within, I believe that there's so much more we can do for every organization than simply a flag. And if we limited the no to simply the flagpole at City Hall, I really believe that there's a lot more that I would like to see than simply saying, oh yeah, we hung a flag and now we're good. That to me doesn't say anything. That says, oh yeah, we're gonna I think it's a term that's been thrown around a lot here of I can't remember what it's called, virtue signaling. I guess that's the term I'm thinking of. Let's not just virtue signal by having somebody say, oh yeah, let's just hang this flag. Let's look at everything we can do to support an organization and act like we are a community that does support everybody, and our policies and practices and those kinds of things will really demonstrate that a lot every day on a day-to-day basis. And so, I would like the flexibility to be able to put a flag other places, perhaps not just at City Hall. So I just wanted to share some of those things of practice, of putting our money where our mouth is. I think there are places that we can find to hang the flag that are super appropriate and super important. And So I just want to throw those ideas out there. Do we just want to hang a flag, or do we want to actually take active action to demonstrate who we are as a city and who we are as a political body in terms of what we do for an organization or a community? And I think that's where I'm sitting, is that I want to do more than just a flag. So I just want to throw those thoughts out for everybody.
Thank you, Councilwoman Manti. And I would just respond to that. And we don't have a policy. I'm surprised, actually kind of shocked at the reaction. I didn't expect it. I'm surprised, but everybody has to act upon their own conscience. And it doesn't preclude us at all from doing any of the other stuff if we allow flags limited to the things that we limited. Doesn't prevent us from doing any of that. Councilman Hoyer has his hand up. Go ahead, Councilman Hoyer.
I do. Thank you, Mayor. I just want to touch on the comment, just a flag. And Brett, you can correct me on this. I can't speak for a whole group of people, but just the way that we view the American flag and what it means to us. It's not just a flag to us. I mean, you wonder why veterans get a little offended when people, and this isn't all veterans, but some people get offended when folks kneel at the flag, because it represents so much more than just being a flag. It represents their friend who fell for the freedom that we enjoy. It represents our history. It represents a whole group of people. And so when we raise that flag, it's out of pride and respect for those people. So by us sitting here and doing that, this is just a flag and this flagpole, and this is just what we're doing. That's not. In a way, to me, I view it as this is us displaying respect and honor for those that have fought for equality, representation, and acceptance in our country, because there's many people that have had to fight a massive, long fight just to be recognized and understood. And by us minimizing that in a way to just a flag, and like there's other appropriate ways to do this. I mean, what more of an appropriate place? Yes, there are so many more things that we can do, but this is such a simple thing for one day to acknowledge, to see, to, I don't know, just honor those that fight that fight. I would still say on top of it that we should do so much more. I mean, heck, for the candlelight march on Friday, like, I think it'd be beautiful if, you go ahead and use the flagpoles on Main Street, on Kemp. That's fine with me. I mean, we do it for Memorial Day. We do it for 4th of July. I don't have any issue with that personally. And I also know this is a highly nonviolent group of Americans, and it's not representing a political view. This is representing a people. I mean, it's not like this is a choice. This is something of who folks are, and just raising awareness that this is still a fight that we fight in the United States. On the coast, it's not as much of an issue, but in the Midwest, we're still catching up, and we got a long ways to go. When it comes to putting up different causes in a city square, like, I love the idea of that the new city park can maybe do this a little bit. You go down to Kansas City, those are city-owned fountains, and there's one specifically in a main area that they changed the color of the water to honor different things, whether that be breast cancer awareness month or what have you. I mean, there's no reason to me, and again, I get it. We don't want to have the talk of like saying no to somebody, but to me, this isn't religious. This isn't anything like that. It's acknowledgement of a group of people, honoring what they've gone through and what they fought for to get where they are today. And we're still a battleground state for basic human rights in some areas. I'm ashamed every time that something comes up trying to redefine marriage again. That was already a Supreme Court case. This is still really fresh in this state, and it's hard for me not to say we should stand in solidarity. I'm fine with like flag requests coming to the council. I mean, heck, we approve permit requests for all sorts of things all the time. The committee idea, that's probably not a terrible idea. And just set guidelines for it a little bit. Again, I understand where everyone's coming from. It's just, I think there's such an importance to this in this community, because being a teenager for me is a little more recent. than some folks, and it was still a problem when I was a teenager. It's probably still a problem today. And it's not something that gets talked about because people love to just sweep things under the rug and not face them head on. We like to not acknowledge that racism is still a problem in our state, and prejudice in general towards people that maybe don't believe things exactly the way we do. But yeah, I guess that's pretty much what I have to say about it. I just wanted to get that in there, though, that to Brett, this probably isn't just a flag, just like how the U.S. flag isn't just a flag to me. So,
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Hoyer. Councilman Roby?
This wasn't insinuated here, but if you listen to the conversation, it sounds like that if somebody votes for the policy that I recommended, that we're somehow anti-something. That's not the case. And when these discussions get on, it sometimes gets interpreted that way. That is not the case here. I think we have a very clear decision, and that is, we're not voting on whether to support any particular group. What we're voting on is, do we want our city flagpoles to be utilized to support different causes, organizations, what have you? And my recommendation, the reason why I made that is after talking with several people, is that it's kind of the Pandora's box syndrome. That's what's before us today. It's a very clear-cut decision. There's a really emotional side that gets in this conversation. I think we're all on the same page on that. In fact, I'm 100% sure we are. But as is often when we get into city issue, we need to focus on what we're voting on. So the recommendation I made was merely that we don't use the city flagpole or flagpoles for anything other than flying the American flag, the state flag, and any city flag that we may have, an official city flag. It's very simple. It's not anti-anything. It's about good governance, and it's about not putting future councils in a position where the flagpole starts getting politicized. Not so much I'm saying by this group, I'm just saying in general. Because if you step back and look at this, it's about good governance. It's not anti-anything. It's about being fair and equitable to everybody. And a future council, if we allow flags on the flagpole, future councils are going to have those issues. When I joined this council, one of my first goals was I don't want to create issues for future councils because some of the things that we've faced were created some time ago. So, Brett, understand you've got complete support up here for your organization. And I think there's a lot of people in Watertown that will back us all up on that. It's a simple issue that we're not going to use, in my opinion, we should use a flagpole for anything other than the three things in the ordinance.
Councilwoman Manty?
Yeah, I just want to clarify based on Mike's comment. Probably not just a flag was the wrong term. I think only a flag was what I was trying to get at, is that I totally agree. I mean, my husband's a Gulf War vet, served 2 terms over in the sandbox, as they call it. And we talk all the time about the fact that that's what he fought for. He fought for the ability to people to kneel if they want to. He fought for whether he agrees with it or not. That's what like Michael said, that's what they're there for. They want people to have freedom of speech and their rights to do the things that they do. And I want that to be clear, that I should have probably said only a flag, that there's so much more that we can do than only a flag. So I agree that that is not, just a flag is probably not the right terminology. On that, I understand what Don is saying very well, in that we have faced, those of us who are on our second term, we have faced a number of things that we've been able to, or that we've been required to. This is a very emotional issue for me. Now, trust me, I'm coming from a place where we have family members. I have immediate family members that this is an issue for them too. So I'm thinking that the idea of not politicizing the flagpole is a valid one. I think that, like I said, we have so many more things that, and I think if you go around the community, you'll find other entities that have a similar policy. They may say, we can't put up the only a flag, but we can do a lot of other things. We can bring in speakers. We can do awareness for our staff. We can have, there's so many more things that we can do. I just want to make sure that we understand that it's not only a flag. We have so many more things we can do. And I understand what people are saying too about the emotions with American flag and the POW flag and things like that. Those are important, but those political discussions have been done and accepted. And I'm not saying that we don't accept the flagpole. I'm saying, can we do more things than only a flag? I want to see us do more. And so I just want to clarify that I'm sorry if I came across as just a flag. That wasn't my intention. My intention was only a flag, and the non-politicizing of. I just still think it could be limited to one flagpole, but I think Don has a really good point that way. And you're also putting organizations at risk. Again, like I said with the mayor, you're putting organizations at risk by having to be at the mercy of a council every time somebody wants to do something. And I think I'd rather have us have a precedence in our community of the support versus only a flag. Does that help? It's not just a flag, and I understand that.
Okay, thank you, Councilwoman Manty. Mr. Reese, go ahead.
Yeah, I just would like to address some of the comments. First of all, doing more than just raising the flag and raising the flag, those aren't mutually exclusive things. We don't have to do one instead of the other. The city already has a Human Rights Commission to hear the kind of thoughts and feelings that Councilman Vilhauer and Councilman Albertson have talked about. And I personally am working with Mayor Karen on our Equality Index score for the policy side of things to help make sure that the council is doing things. So don't worry, that part is being done. But that part does not have the same impact that this kind of support would have in the community. With all due respect, Councilman Roby, you keep saying that it's not being anti-something, but then just a couple sentences afterward, you said, do we want to decide as a council to support certain organizations using the flagpole? And your answer was no. Your answer was to only have it be government flags. And I can't help when people say that they're listening to me as an LGBTQ member, having councilman members say, do we want to make this a political issue? Who I am is not political. It's not up for a political debate. And standing against violence and discrimination in our community, that shouldn't be a political issue that we're talking about today. This is something that the council has said they stand against, something that Councilman Roby just said he stands against. And this is the opportunity for the city council to actually show that to its community members. If you only allow government flags to be flown, you are robbing yourself of the opportunity to finally stand up against the violence and the hatred that you guys say makes you sick, that it exists in our community. You are all leaders of our community. And people look to you guys. They look to the city hall for guidance on where they should be. And to have a flag be raised just for one day would mean an immense amount to the individuals that have faced this sort of hatred, discrimination, and violence in this community. And that's what I want this to be focused on. When the White House showed rainbow colors on the White House for Pride Month a couple years ago, who's still up in arms about that? Who's still talking about that? Nobody is. But I can tell you as an LGBTQ individual member that when I saw that, it meant the world to me, because I finally saw the government saying that they are going to protect me. And not only that, but they are going to condemn people that want to be violent towards me and want to harass me. And so when we say things like we need support from our city government officials, this is the kind of support we are talking about. When we come to a Human Rights Commission and say that we want more advocacy and more support from our city, this is the kind of support that we are asking for. And so I don't want you guys to turn your heads away and say, oh, well, it might cause issues. Lighting fireworks at the soccer complex may cause some issues. People might get injured. Fires might start happening. But we adjust to those things. We take risks. We take stances for things that would benefit our community. And this is another one of those instances. We're doing something so simple as raising a flag for one day can mean the world to this city and to individuals in this city. People need a platform to voice their support and start the conversations against the hatred and the harassment that we are facing in this community. And this is a way to start those conversations, and it's a way to condemn those actions. And it's such a simple way of doing it as well. And so I strongly encourage any council members that want to vote for the government flag only policy. We are doing the other things that you talk about. We have a commission. Councilwoman Manti, I am working on laws and other policies through the city to make sure that we are doing more than raising a flag. But I need this piece. My community needs this piece as well, so that we can finally start having conversations in Watertown about what's going on in our city and where our city council stands. If you reject this and you say no, you are denying an opportunity to have those conversations, and as leaders, choosing to not talk about it to the same degree. And so I can't help but feel, when you guys say that you support, your actions need to follow that. And doing something so simple with something that I don't think has a significant risk. Keep in mind, Mayor Karen's policy would prevent political flags, would prevent religious flags, would prevent commercial flags. It's preventing all of the concerns that you are worried about will happen if you raise this flag. The policy is going to adapt to that. And if there's a hole in it, we can adjust to that as well as a city council. But we need this first step, and it's this truly is the opportunity for the city council to now say, we do actually support you, Brett. We do actually support your community, and we are willing as leaders in this city to take that public stance. That's what we've been missing since I've grown up here in Watertown.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Councilman Roby.
Brett, I've made it clear I support your organization. I've made it clear. I've stated it publicly and I'll state it again. We want to support your efforts. The thing I'm trying to stress here is a procedural thing, and I get the emotion around the issue. But if you look out, when we make decisions as a city, we set precedents every time we make a decision. We've done this with all kinds of ordinances, building codes, you name it. In this particular case, I didn't say you were politicizing. What I said is when we start allowing people to put their flags on the flagpole, it will eventually, I believe, it eventually will get politicized. So aside from the emotion here, which we're telling you we support your organization and we're looking at other things we can do, this particular issue is a flagpole for government flags. If we are going to make the decision to allow non-governmental flagpoles on those flagpoles, we'll get those requests. We will. And then we're going to get them from a lot of different types of groups. And then eventually what's going to happen is we're going to have to say no. And then all the issues, Brett, that you talked about, all the problems that can come up with some of that, those are going to show up. And then the council at that point is going to have to make a decision. Who are we going to let on, who are we not? And those that don't get let on say you're discriminating against us and you're anti our organization. That's not the debate I'm making here. The debate I'm making is a procedural, do you want non-governmental flags on a governmental flagpole? It's a very simple issue. We're getting real clouded in a lot of other very important issues. The point is this, it's a flagpole for the government flags. If we're going to allow non-governmental flags on there, then in the future, there's going to be a lot of requests that I think are going to create a lot of issues. It's that simple of an issue. It has nothing to do with against anybody else, and I'd rather you didn't put me in that box. So that's my point very clearly.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Council members? Councilman Lawler, you had your hand up for a while and I didn't call on you. Do you still want to speak?
Yeah, sorry, I'm having some technical difficulty here. I apologize. There we are. Yeah, and to Don's point, not to beat around the bush or anything like that. We were elected to make hard decisions. That's never been one that I think most of us on the council would say that that's part of the job when you get hired into it. I look at it similar not that they're exactly the same, but our sign ordinance, we can't dictate what's on a sign. Our flag, we can't really dictate what's on the flagpole. So, I mean, those are some of the things that come up. I think that, the Pulse nightclub shooting, which killed 49 people, is a travesty and never should have happened. But unfortunately, there are people in this world that will never accept how people are. And I feel that is, that's something that we have as a country we need to overcome, especially with the turmoil we have now. You look at it, there's so much animosity and so much hate in our country that we can't simply say it's one thing or the other. But, on a flag, I typically go with, our government flag is our government flag. United States of America is United States of America, for good or bad. Those are just kind of what we run into. I support them. I think that that group has gone through, I can't even imagine what they've gone through. We'll just put it at that. So, I don't know where to go with that. It is a difficult decision all the way around. And, we just have to take them as they come. So, Brett, I appreciate you coming forward and, making your case. It is a very challenging and, it's good for our country to have people stand up and talk about it and have this discussion. So, appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Lallam. Councilman Vilhauer?
Mayor, I move the question.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion, which,
Mayor.
oh, I thought we had a second. Go ahead, Matt.
The motion, was there a second?
Yes, I have Holeen. The motion was made by Councilman Roby and seconded by Councilman Holeen. And this motion would allow government-only flags plus the POW-MIA.
Was there a second on the motion to call the question?
Oh, sorry. I have a motion by Vilhauer and a second by Holeen.
Okay, there needs to be a vote on that motion.
Okay.
There's no discussion and 2/3 are required to call the question.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. That was unanimous. So now we can take the vote. Am I doing that correctly, Matt?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So now the vote on the motion, which is to allow government-only flags and POW-MIA. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed to the motion signify by saying nay.
Nay. Nay.
Roll call vote, please.
Okay. Albertson,
Aye.
Bueller,
Aye.
Hoyer,
Nay.
Holeen,
Aye.
Lallam,
Aye.
Manti,
Reluctantly, aye.
Rademski,
Aye.
Roby,
Aye.
Vilhauer,
Aye.
aye.
Nay.
8-2, motion carries.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Reese. You made a compelling case. Sure, go ahead.
Thank you again all for your discussion and allowing me to come and talk to you today. It sounds like all of you here are in support of what we're trying to do. And so I really hope that I see all 7 of you and those watching walking with us on Friday to show that as a city council you are standing against this. So I welcome you, I invite you, and I hope to see you then.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Who was that? Councilman Lallam?
This is Adam, yes.
Go
Brett,
ahead.
what time is that at, please, if you could?
So if you want to walk with us, we are meeting at 8:30 p.m. at the post office. If you just want to watch, we will begin walking along Kemp Avenue at 9 p.m.
Until when, please?
The event should take about an hour, depending if you're walking or if you're watching. Obviously, if you're just watching, it'll be a little bit less. But if you're walking, we're going to McKinley Park and reading off the 49 names.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yes, it's going to be candles, so waiting for dusk.
Yeah, and the PO is doing a story on it too, so it'll be in the paper as well.
All right. All right. The next item on the agenda is authorization for the mayor to execute a warranty deed, a quit claim deed, or any other necessary document to give clear title to certain abandoned railroad right-of-way owned by Terex South Dakota, Inc. And actually, I'm reading this with new eyes. Matt, do we have to do one or the other, warranty or quit claim, for a motion?
Yeah, so since the agenda's been posted, it's been clarified exactly what we need by the title company. So the motion will be to approve a quit claim deed.
Okay. Is there such a motion? Motion by Helene.
Second.
Second by Bueller. And I will ask Matt to explain this issue, please.
Thank you, Mayor. So this has kind of been an interesting week. Learned a lot about the history of railroads in our country and that sort of thing. But essentially, what happened here was back in 2000, the railroad gave the city a deed for a large strip of land that used to be railroad right-of-way. And in 2005, the state of South Dakota issued a land patent, which is another name, which is essentially the first deed of a piece of property to a private owner to Terex in 2005. So Terex is in the process of marketing their one of their parcels, and the title company is asking for us to provide a quitclaim deed saying that or a deed transferring ownership to Terex. What we discovered in short is that there was a recent U.S. Supreme Court case on this issue, just as a way of a little historical lesson, is that the land that the railroads were given, it was recently determined, was never owned by the railroads. It was they were simply given an easement. So what we were given in the year 2000 had no legal effect. We never owned the land, and the true conveying document was in 2005 to Terex. So long story short, the title company would still like a quitclaim deed from the city in order to provide clear title to this parcel, in order to provide insurable title as well, so that their transaction can proceed.
Thank you, Matt. Are there questions from the council or comments? Councilman Rademski?
I'm going to recuse myself.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Lallam?
Matt, is there any way to pull up where this is located at, or maybe Heath can?
I was thinking that might be requested here. Let me see what I can do. 1 second.
While we're waiting for that, are there other questions or comments? Councilman Lallam, did you have something you want to say about it, or?
Well, I'm just wondering, I may have to recuse myself as well, just depending on where it's located at.
Okay.
I need to know where that is, just so I can make that decision.
Okay.
Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Yes.
So this is the airport. It's 4th Avenue. This is Tesco, Steinsign here. This is one Terex previous or currently still a Terex building, and this is another Terex building. This is Highway 212. So this is the parcel here that the railroad tried to give to us by deed in the year 2000. that they didn't actually own. So this would be us quitclaim deeding any interest we may have had in that parcel, which I believe was none, but nonetheless, the title company still wants that to clear the title.
Okay, I'm good on that.
Okay, thank you. Other questions or comments? Councilman Vilhauer?
I've got a question, Matt. You say the railroad tried to give us something which they never owned. Does that apply to all the railroad right-of-ways that have been abandoned, in the country? I mean, who owns that land then if the railroads didn't own it?
Ultimately, well, I can't speak to every railroad in the country. I can't.
I'm specifically Watertown, for example.
Well, my understanding is yes, the land that was given to the railroad, or the right of way that was given to the railroads in the Railroad Act of 1875, that land was given not in fee ownership but as easement, and the land once abandoned becomes owned by the state in which the railroad lied.
Okay, so it's the state that actually owns that land then?
Correct.
Okay.
Councilman Roby?
Matt, first of all, we need to do what's right, but secondly, I would just ask, is there any downside for the city on this?
No, I don't see. Originally, they were asking for a warranty deed, and I was encouraging them to change that request, and they did. If we were asked to provide a warranty deed, I'd be a little more hesitant to suggest that we proceed with that. But a quitclaim deed merely says that if we own this property at all, we don't think we do, we don't know if we do, but if we own any part of it, it's now Terex's.
So no liability goes with it?
Correct. There's no ability for anybody to come back on us with a quitclaim deed. So I see no issue proceeding with this.
All right, are there other questions or comments? Councilman Lallam?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. On this one, and actually having done some work on a couple of the former railroad properties, the state has owned most of those. They have transferred ownership or sold them outright. I know that is the state has been trying, at least the state of South Dakota has been trying to do that recently. So I think we're okay, but if that's what it is, so that there's clear title and everyone feels okay with it, I'm good with it.
All right. Other comments or questions? See none, I'll look for action. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Thank you, Matt.
Yep.
Item E is review of the continued necessity of resolution number 20-15, declaring an emergency concerning the pandemic outbreak of the novel coronavirus, COVID-19, and providing for responsive measures related to the operations of the city and the protection of public health. Councilman Vilhauer?
Mayor, I suggest that we let this ride for the time being as is and review it again next Monday at our regular meeting.
Okay. Anybody else need to talk about this? We don't need to take action, right, Matt?
Correct.
Yep. Okay. Then I'm going to go ahead and move on to old business. We did put out a request for proposals, and Matt's been handling that. Matt, if you could let us know the result. That proposal deadline was last Friday.
Yes, thanks, Mayor. We had a pretty good turnout for responses to our RFP. We received 9 submittals for firms from all over the country, predominantly in the Midwest, but firms from all over the country showed interest. I haven't had a chance to comb through them yet, but I did just kind of quick pull the pricing out just so the council has an idea of where we're going to be on pricing. The lowest of those 9 was $21,500. The highest was $27,500. One of those actually has a contingent fee based on it's 20% of the first year's salary. So that one actually could be the highest, depending on the first year salary. But otherwise, we just wanted to let the council know that we received, the deadline was Friday. We received 9 submittals out of the price overview, and then, I guess I would ask the mayor and council to perhaps discuss how we want to proceed. We did indicate that we would choose a consultant by later this month. We're not being, there's nothing holding us to that specifically, but probably by the first meeting in July, we want to make that decision. And so there should be a group of council members put together to review those proposals and move forward.
Okay, and to be clear, the proposals were for services to help us search for a city manager. So this is a recruiter firm that will help us find a city manager. Councilman Lallam, did you have something?
Yeah, I was just gonna say I'd actually like to be in on that, Matt, if you would be okay with it, to kind of look through those, maybe a couple other council members to kind of just read through the proposals if possible.
Yeah, this should be, absolutely. I guess I would defer to you or Glenn or the mayor to kind of decide who's going to be a part of that committee. Obviously, it can't be more than a quorum. And I'll assist, and Jelaine will assist in any way. But obviously, this is ultimately this resides with the council, and the council should be, the leadership of the council should be comfortable with whoever we determined to use here, because this is they're helping you ultimately make a hiring decision. So.
Okay, are there other volunteers?
Mayor, I would volunteer. I've been involved in this process going back a couple of years now, nearly, so I would like to be involved in this process.
Councilman Roby, Councilman Vilhauer, Councilman Lallam. Anyone else? Okay, and then, so that'll give us a good committee, and we'll go through the process and hopefully make a recommendation for a contract at the first meeting in July. All right, thank you. I would like to just give an update on the COVID cases. We've had a little bit of a rise. Last Friday we had 9 cases in the 9-county region surrounding Watertown. These are the counties that use our hospital, shop in our stores, use our rec facilities. And now we are up to 25 just from Friday. We went up in Watertown, I think we went up 2 on Saturday and 2 today. We're up to 11 positive cases. We have 43 cases right now, and I think we were at 39 on Friday. So we're having a little bit of a rise. We've had it before, don't know where it's leading, but that's the latest. Is there any other old business? Is there any new business? Okay, liaison member reports. Councilman Holine.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to speak on behalf of the airport board, and we are pleased to announce that we will be resuming daily flights to Chicago. It's great news for Watertown and the overall national economy and flights. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, Councilman Albertson.
Reed, what is the status of the building out there? Maybe I've just not followed up carefully enough, but where is that, as long as you had brought that up?
Well, if there was an airport board meeting that coincided with this meeting today to talk about it, and I would have been more prepared to let you know, but they're still working on it. I think we're getting very close to finalizing the details of what we like in the architectural design. There's been a lot of those meetings. The mayor has sat in on all of those, as well as has Glenn.
Mm-hmm.
So
we're down to picking out the furniture.
Yeah.
There is another meeting next Tuesday to finalize some of the details, and then hopefully very soon after that, it will actually go out to bids. So we're getting close to, moving forward a little further on this.
Okay.
But I think if the council were interested, I think it would probably be a good choice if Todd Cyree or Shannon Cruz came on behalf of the airport board and did a quick presentation. I would stress quick because these meetings have tended to get quite long on the airport design. But just to show the full council and maybe a last minute suggestion.
Great, thank you. Are there other liaison member reports? Okay, announcements. I want to just quickly say we've probably all been watching the news coverage of the protests that are going around our country with interest and concern. I've been watching and feeling pretty powerless, but hopeful that violence and property destruction won't happen here. I really don't think it will. There was a protest on Saturday that I attended. The organizer was adamant that it be peaceful, and it was really pretty inspiring to see all the people that came. There were several hundred people there, and a lot of people in cars that didn't actually come out into the park or at the courthouse, but they were in cars, and there was a parade from I can't think of the name of that park. Diamond Ball, thank you, to the courthouse. So that was a good protest in that people really had a chance to express themselves and there was no violence. I want people to understand this protest was not against law enforcement. That's not what it was. I've seen some stuff on Facebook. Absolutely not against law enforcement. It was against discrimination. We're protesting discrimination and violence and, of course, mistreatment. So we have excellent law enforcement here. I'm very proud of our community and proud of our police department, and I feel very safe. And I would just like to take this opportunity to call upon all people in Watertown to treat others the way we want them to treat us. And that's what everyone wants in this world. So with that, I want to, are there any other announcements before I move on? Not seeing any. We do have a need to go into executive session pursuant to SDCL 1-25-2 in order to discuss and consult with our legal counsel confidential information regarding economic development, contractual matters, and I believe that is all. So, yes.
Two questions. How long do you think that'll take, and are we anticipating any
We
action
do not
from it?
expect any answer when we come out, and I do not know. I mean, there's several items that depends on what the council wants to know. I have some things to explain that we will be in a position to be making decisions soon, and I want the council to have background information for economic development and contractual matters. So I need a motion for that, though. A motion by Helene. Second by Albertson. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. We need to log out of this meeting and log into the executive session meeting. Sure. To make it really quick. I know some people have to get back to work.